Hello, everybody. Can you all hear me? So this is working? Good. Want to check if this works? Yes, this works. Nice. So yeah, welcome everybody. I hope you have enjoyed the conference so far. As mentioned, my name is Örn Haraldsson. I'm a team and executive coach at Kolibri. I will be talking about something I call here the hidden ingredient. I want to keep it hidden for a few minutes and start off with a question: what is a team? Now, yeah, they're all four there. Good. So, not necessarily to go into a whole session about what's a team, but start off with a definition. So, a definition of a team is like this. A team is a small group of people who support each other with their diverse abilities, has a common purpose, a common understanding on how to fulfill that purpose, and shares the responsibility for the outcome. Now, I could talk here almost all day about this definition, but I'm not going to do that, so it's okay. Another thing I want to mention, what is a successful team? Now, when I talk about successful team, it's a team that actually creates the outcome that is successful in fulfilling this before mentioned purpose or goal. Now, if you've ever been on a team, how was it? Was it a successful team or a dysfunctional one? And just take a minute and reflect on this. Especially, what made it a successful one? Or what made it a dysfunctional one? Just a few moments to reflect on this. And welcome the new arrivals. Now, my talk today is about an ingredient. It's about the ingredient of a team. It's an ingredient that can make all the difference whether a team is successful or dysfunctional. The reason for this topic is that in my years of, is it loud when I go here? Is it because I'm, hello? It's fine, keep going, good. All right, the reason for this topic is in my years of coaching teams, software teams, management teams, executive teams, I see this ingredient so often taken for granted and even overlooked. And when it becomes a problem, people just don't realize what the problem really is and therefore are not able to know what to do about it. So, it isn't really a surprise because of its subtle nature. And when everything is nice and dandy, you don't know about it. You don't notice this ingredient directly. And when things start going off track, it's really hard to link the cause of what's the problem to this ingredient or the lack of it. And here is a line that I want you to keep in mind throughout the session and hopefully way after the session, because this will be the main point, although you will not know the ingredient yet. It's a connection with this ingredient to success. So, if this ingredient is not of a certain level, you will not have a successful team. So what is this essential, subtle element? Maybe you already guessed. Ta-da! It is trust. So now you know. Thank you all for coming and have a nice day. Thank you. No, not quite. Let's take a few minutes and discuss with our neighbors what this is really. I mean, what is trust? And let's approach it with a few questions. So, discuss what is trust, what happens when the trust level is high, what happens when the trust level is low, and what really builds trust. So pair up 2 and 2 together, and 3 if you have odd numbers. Don't worry, and I will let you know when the time is up. 2 or 3 minutes, and go. All right. Time is up. I could reuse the joke, so now you've all figured out, so we can finish, but I'm not going to do that. So, what happens when there is high level of trust? When I talk about trust in the context of a team, a high level of trust means that team members can bring all of themselves to the table. They can show up fully. They allow themselves to be vulnerable. They allow themselves to express their ideas, feelings, thoughts, admit mistakes, challenge each other's ideas and arguments. And in so doing, risking they will be seen as negative, incompetent, or just plain stupid. Team members in this situation, when there's high level of trust, they can interact with a feeling of safety. They experience safe space. Now, if trust is not in place, you will not have a successful team. Simple as that. Now, for the record, I don't seem to be the only one saying trust in teams is essential for their success. There's a small company called Google that did a research on this. They took a look at over 180 teams within the company and found that there was one element which was by far the most important one for their teams to be effective, successful. Now, they call it psychological safety. So when there is high psychological safety, they found that teammates feel safe to take risks around their team members. They feel confident that no one on the team will embarrass or punish anyone else for admitting a mistake, asking a question, or offering a new idea. Yes, there were other elements that Google found that are very important for the effectiveness of a team, but psychological safety was by far the most important one. And then there is the team expert with the Italian name, Patrick Lencioni. He has spent some serious amount of time and effort specializing in executive team development. In one of his books, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team that you might know, he puts the dysfunction absence of trust at the very base level. So he says that fear of being vulnerable with team members prevents the building of trust within the team. Now, I mentioned earlier that this ingredient, trust, is of a subtle nature. Therefore, I think it fits to tell you a story that describes what comes with it. So, it's story time. Once upon a time, there was a team of 4 people. 4, there you go. Their names are Peter, Jennifer, Simon, and Maggie, and Peter just recently joined the team. One day, there was a planning meeting as the first thing in the morning. The discussion starts, and soon it shows that Peter, the new team member, is a bit grumpy. Not grumpy enough for the other team members to call him on it, but surely grumpy enough to pollute the meeting. This resulted in longer discussions where Peter brought most of his arguments from the half-empty glass. Half-empty glass and leaving the team not fully committed on decisions made, and the team members feeling irritated without being able to pin it to a single argument or behavior of Peter. So he had this cloud over him. And the thing is, after the meeting, there were a lot of things going on in the other people's minds. Now, such as Simon, he worried about whether there was tension building between Peter and Maggie due to Peter's response to her ideas. Jennifer was unsatisfied with the outcome of the meeting, wondering how to proceed and feeling unmotivated to go full force on the actions decided upon at the meeting. And Maggie, she was agonizing over the waste that came with this negativity she saw brewing in Peter, unaware of going down that road herself. Now, Peter himself was having many strong feelings. He felt both angry and sad due to a quarrel he had with his wife this morning. He felt guilty about not being professional enough at the meeting and worrying how the other team members would think of him now. Now, can you imagine the amount of waste in this scenario? Not to mention the decrease in happiness level. Now, let's rewind and change the storyline just a tiny bit and see what happens. So, at the beginning of the meeting, everybody check in. So, who knows here what a check-in is? Raise your hand. All right, fair amount of people. So, for those who don't, checking in is a part of, in the given moment, answering the question, how am I feeling right now? There are other forms, but I'll leave you with this. So each team member does exactly that. Tells how he or she is feeling right now. No discussions about anyone's check-in. Each team member just expressing their feelings as they are at this given moment. Now Jennifer starts. Yeah, Jennifer starts. There you go, Jennifer. Saying she's worried about the status of the project, but also happy and hopeful because they're having this meeting to get a clearer picture on how to proceed with the project. Now Simon goes next, saying he's happy due to his good night's sleep, which he hasn't had for days. Now Maggie checks in by saying she's sad because one of her close co-workers is leaving the company. Now finally Peter checks in, saying he is angry and sad because he has had a quarrel with his wife this morning, and then pausing a bit. And then adding, he's relieved having told them about it. Boom. The discussion starts and totally different vibe emerges. Peter's still a bit angry and sad, but participating from a place of safety, as he knows that they know where he's coming from. Therefore, able to lean into the half full glass more often than in the previous storyline. Now, Jennifer challenged the current plan a bit, pointing out issues with the prioritization, especially what Simon is working on. Now, Simon, now knowing that Jennifer is coming from a concern for the project, not trying to put him down, that means he is able to get into discussion solution-minded, not in a defense mode. The discussions result in actions that all team members commit to and feel motivated to work on. What followed was that the team as a whole was aligned and motivated. Peter still having some angry and sad thoughts, yes, but way more capable and motivated to do some actual work. Knowing the others, don't think any less of him. The rest of the team, well, Simon didn't have to spend time thinking whether there was tension building between Peter and Maggie, because he knew due to a check-in why Peter was having a bad day. Jennifer was very happy and motivated due to the clear outcome of the meeting that she was hoping for, a plan the team as a whole committed fully to act on. And Maggie, she was grateful for being in a workplace that does stuff like check-ins, allowing her and others to know where people are coming from, minimizing, therefore, the waste in the form of endless speculating thoughts cluttering the mind. Now, this was the end of the story. That story, at least. Of course, there are some caveats you can put on the story, but the question remains. Do you think the outcome of the second storyline paid up for the time spent on the check-in? Or to put it differently, do you think it pays off to spend time deliberately on building trust in a team? Now it's time to take a look at what really builds trust. So, the big contributors in building trust are connection. It's about knowing versus not knowing. Getting to know each other makes all the difference. And building connection is about face-to-face interaction. And with deeper connection, people actually start to care for each other. Understanding understanding people's mindset, where they're coming from, their values, beliefs, and drivers. And then the third one, a pretty frequent one that you know about. It's about the delivery. It's the delivering on the promises you make to each other. So it's about showing up at the given time that you set and the current location as well. So what can you do to build trust systematically through these contributors? Well, in its simplest form, it's about spending time together, designing the agenda with focus on the contributors. Now, the difficult part here for most people is that it's about seeing the value of spending time together in situations that are not actual work. Now, I remember a strong reaction from an executive when we were planning a kickoff for a team. Well, we don't want to spend time throwing balls all day. Seeing this as a mushy stuff that should not take time from the actual work. Now, as I mentioned before, it is understandable because people usually don't link trust with success. And again, if there's only one thing that you take from this session is the importance of putting this link together and therefore seeing the value of spending time building trust. All right. Yeah. One thing though, even though people generally see trust as a very important thing, they usually take it for granted. They say, yes, of course, trust is important, but it's common sense. We are all adults here. Let's just focus on the work. Anyway, trust is absolutely essential for a team to be successful. It seems, if it is so essential, it would seem wise to do what's possible to put it in place, right? Now, next thing. Overall, you want the level of trust to rise as fast as possible in the beginning when starting a team and continue to rise throughout the team's lifetime. I'll introduce here a few tools that I use heavily in my work with teams. And where am I at in time? Okay, good time. Yeah, good time. Check-in. Now you know all about it. It's about answering the question for each team member, how am I feeling right now? I showed the example in the story, but another example, I'm going to check in right now. So, how am I feeling right now? Right now, slightly tense, but still, healthy, excited, I would say. No thing in my stomach now. I was before. Now that's gone. So I feel relatively sort of ready to do this. I'm already almost finished, so I'm almost through. So I'm getting there. So yeah, I'm feeling quite good. So I'm in. So this was a check-in. So this method is extremely easy to try out, and it doesn't cost very much. It takes short time, and it can reap very great rewards. It's very good in the beginning of meetings, but it's not limited to that occasion. And check-ins, they build trust through the connection and understanding contributors that I mentioned before. Now, next one, personal histories. Every team member answers a question that grasps his or her personal history. Now, here's an example of questions, or a set of questions. Where did you grow up? What's your education experience? What's your family status? And this is one of my favorites. How would you describe yourself? Because when you go into these kind of questions, you actually are, throwing out information that could take weeks or months to get at. So why not just go right there and build it very fast? So, as check-in, personal histories build trust through the connection and understanding contributors. The next one, life journey mapping. Very similar to personal histories, but more graphical. So this is about, every team member having a paper and a pen, drawing a line or doing however they want, but sort of getting a graphical grasp of their life so far, pinning to it some events or periods in their lives that were influential, that were very important in their lives. And they do this in a number of 10 or 15 minutes, and then they share this information. And reference the map to each other. The extra value that Life Journey Map has over personal histories is that you have actually physical outcome that you can reuse. So you can, for example, the team could put it on the wall in the office space. They can reuse it if a new team member comes into the team, etc. And the fourth and the last tool I'm going to talk about is the working agreement. Now, working agreement is a foundation for a team in building trust and in bringing forth the behavior the team wants. It's a set of behaviors that the team agrees to work by, usually no more than 10 or 12, but there's no really fixed. The trick here is not to have it too big of a number, because then nobody will remember anything of it. Now, it gives the team a reference point when hitting difficult situations later on, which they most likely will. And then they can actually support each other in improving the behavior they want for the team. Now, the challenge is to keep the working agreement alive. That is, to actually be aware of it and use it. So the team call each other out if the agreement is broken. Now, very likely what can happen is that you introduce this working agreement, you go through the workshop around that, all nice, and you have this amazing working agreement. Then in a few weeks, nobody knows, nobody remembers, what is it? And even that you put it on the wall, it sort of comes like an ad, and you sort of filter it out all the way. So you need to keep it alive by revisiting it very often and regularly, frequently. The reason, again, that is to help the team to become conscious about it. Now, as with personal histories, this exercise is extremely valuable when starting the team. It builds trust mostly through the understanding and the delivery contributor. Now, this one is working on the delivery contributor more than the other two. Now, here are some examples. I'll run fast through those. We communicate openly and constructively. We give and receive feedback in a constructive manner. Now, that one is, again, one of my favorites, because we live in a culture that doesn't really have nice and constructive feedback mechanism. Now, or do we? Now, what else? Yeah, we share information with each other, and we celebrate the victories, big and small. Now, the funny thing is, when all is nice and dandy, which usually is the case in the early days of a team's lifetime, people wonder, why are we spending time on these tools? Really? And understandably so, because their impact doesn't really show until you get into stressful times. Boom. When you're stressed, you're way more likely to bite those around you. And if there is little connection between team members and little understanding of each other's mindset, those bites will easily trigger negative thoughts and assumptions, nagging, talking behind each other's back, etc. Psychological safety gives way to heal those bites much, much faster and prevent the infections that otherwise would follow. Note that even at stressful times, it can be hard to see clearly the level of impact these tools can have, as we can't compare it with situations that didn't happen. Now, you could say then, spending time on trust building is doing preventive measures. It's like having a vaccination, just less painful. All right, so we are into summary. I have about 3 minutes, right? 2 minutes? Oh, other than I have. All right, I'll be quick about this. 2 minutes. This is the main point. Get conscious of relation from trust to success. To see the value in deliberately building and maintaining high level of trust in your team. To see the value in doing it. It's very often taken for granted, so make the connection, please. The main contributors of trust, connection, getting to know each other, this is about face-to-face interaction. Understanding where people are coming from, their values, beliefs, and drivers. Delivering on the promises made to each other. And there are ways to put trust in the team, deliberately and in a systematic manner. Like with check-ins, personal histories, working agreements. And to close this, what's your next action to increase the trust level in your team? Thank you for listening.